Throughout history, there have been countless unexplainable stories, events, and moments captured on audio. These horrifying tapes were archived, never to be heard again. Until now. These are the tapes of trepidation. Tape number 15. WWF. Cancelled in your house pay-per-view. Before I start telling the story, let me introduce myself. My name is Dexter, and I'm currently playing football for the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers. Growing up, I was a huge fan of pro wrestling, and I was always begging my parents to let me stay up late to watch Monday Night Raw. Yeah, I know wrestling is mostly fake, but I never really cared. I just wanted to see my favorite wrestler, Kane, chokeslam everyone from Stone Cold Steve Austin to Meat. There's an Attitude Era deep cut for you. Recently, with classes and football games, I've had trouble keeping up with both Raw and SmackDown. The other thing was that I only had a low to moderate amount of money, so I can only afford to watch 2 or 3 pay-per-views a year. I usually just stick to watching my old WWF discs when I can. Except for one. Last May, I was walking around the campus when I passed by a pro wrestling store. I had passed by the same lot a few days ago, and it was unoccupied and still had the for rent sign. Those must have been some efficient workers, I thought to myself. Shrugging, I walked inside. As soon as I walked in, a blast of air conditioning welcomed me. Thank God. South Carolina isn't exactly the coolest place in the country. Scanning the shelves, I spotted action figures, signed merch, and DVDs. I hopped over to the DVDs shelf and went through its contents. There was a couple of WrestleMania DVDs, a Jeff Hardy one, and a complete In Your House box set. If you're not a wrestling fan, In Your House was a pay-per-view series that was held in the months the WWF didn't have a major pay-per-view. Being from Memphis, I was able to go to the St. Valentine's Day Massacre event when I was 8. And it wasn't even in the nosebleed seats either. I was 4 rows from the ring. I snatched up that box set, an Eddie Guerrero figure, and a Monster Energy from the vending machine. I expected the In Your House collection to be worth a fortune, but nope. It was only $25. I didn't really think much of it, and I rode my skateboard back to my dorm. When I got home, I popped the CD into my PlayStation 3. The menu came up, which was the In Your House logo, and a collection of shots from the events. There were 4 options: Select Event, Random Event, Options, and Extras. I checked out the options menu. It was nothing special. Just languages, subtitles, display, and all that kind of junk. I don't remember much from the extras menu. I saw a promo for WrestleMania 2000 though, which, by the way, the DVD was apparently released in the summer of 1999. I decided to get this show on the road and went to Select Event. It took me to a list of In Your House pay-per-views, all 28 of them. I scrolled through, and sure enough, everything from the first In Your House to Backlash was there. A part of my mind wanted me to go further for some reason, to see if there were more options. And oddly enough, there were. Right there on the screen was 29, Armageddon in your house. Clear as day. The title itself didn't really strike me as odd. There were in your house events that later became yearly pay-per-views, like Unforgiven. The first Armageddon was held in December 1999, but still, 29? As far as my extensive knowledge went, there were only 28 in your house shows. I decided to select it. I was brought to another screen. The description said Armageddon took place on June 6, 1999, in Charleston, South Carolina. I selected the match selection option. There were only 2 matches. The first was a 20-man over-the-top battle royal, and the second was a Kane versus Mankind Inferno match. Saving the best for last, I chose the battle royal to start. Billy Gunn won, if you're one of the few who cares about that. After that, I selected Kane versus Mankind in the Inferno match. Both of the wrestlers made their entrances, though I think Kane's music was a bit different. A lower pitch, maybe. When both were in the ring, the fire around the canvas was lit, and the match was underway. As far as I remember, the match was pretty normal. Kane would get in a few hits, Mankind would get a few, and they both hit their finishers sometime during the match. I, myself, felt pretty successful. I had found a lost WWF event. Still, why would Mr. McMahon remove all traces of this from the promotion's history? I was about to find out. Kane had been getting a ton of momentum, and he grabbed Mankind in a chokehold. Knowing full well what was coming next, I smiled like I was 10 years old all over again. The big red machine lifted Mankind up and tossed him into the flames. The bell rang, signaling Kane had won the match. Then, the screaming began. Horrible, agonizing, ear-raping screaming that could have only been described as a banshee's wail in reverse. The camera panned over to Mankind, and what I saw was terrifying. Now, before I explain this scene, I'm rather immune to gore and disturbing imagery. I'm a dedicated X-File, and I've written a few creepypastas. But this was just above all of that. Mankind was on fire. Standard end to an Inferno match, right? That's how you win, after all. This was different. You could clearly see his skin melting off, showing muscle and even bone in some spots. His hair was singed. The lights in the arena turned off, but the flames still burned bright. And this went on and on and on. Finally, one of the officials ran over with a fire extinguisher and sprayed Mankind. His charred body laid there, not moving an inch. Paramedics arrived and took him out of the arena. The television cut to black and took me back to the main menu. Now, being a wrestling connoisseur, I have knowledge of what was legit and what was kayfabe. This was legit. There was no way, especially in 1999, that such a horrendous burning could be faked like that on live television. Fuck. I don't even know if that's possible now. I couldn't get the image of Mankind out of my brain. I hopped over to my computer and made a thread of it on /woo as quickly as I could. Only one person knew what I was talking about. He said that Mankind wasn't originally Mick Foley. The character was portrayed by another unknown wrestler who died after the Inferno match. the pay-per-view was never aired or referred to again, and Mick Foley was brought in to replace Mankind's original wrestler. Foley, however, had always been Cactus Jack and Dude Love. Mankind was called the third face of Foley because of the other wrestler's striking resemblance to Mick. The next morning, I went over to the wrestling store to ask the manager about the DVD. Surprisingly, the place was open on Memorial Day. The manager said he found the DVD on the black market and thought it would be perfect for collectors. I haven't touched that disc since. This has been tape number 15, WWF, Cancelled in Your House pay-per-view, by the Tapes of Trepidation Horror Narration Podcast. WWF Cancelled in Your House pay-per-view was written by JimmyTheKeybladeWielder and was originally posted on the Creepypasta wiki. Narration, production, and sound design for this episode was by TJ Hodder. Additional credits for music and effects that may be used in this episode are given in the show notes. The Tapes of Trepidation theme was written by the incredible J.M. Scherf. All logos, banners, overlays, and graphic design work was provided by the talented Jason Reese from Jaber Digital Arts. If you have a story you would like to submit or a question regarding the show, please contact us at tapesoftrepidation.podcast@gmail.com. Support the show by subscribing and leaving a rating on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcatcher, or leave us a like and subscribe on YouTube. Be sure to tell your friends. Word of mouth is extremely helpful to a new podcast like this one. Check us out on social media through the link tree in the show notes. We have Facebook, Instagram, and Discord. If you'd like to support the show a little more, consider joining the Tapes of Trepidation Patreon, where for as little as $5 a month, you'll gain access to monthly bonus short story narrations, of which there are currently 6 with lots more on the way, the weekly behind-the-scenes podcast within the archive, and much more. Come, join us, and become trapped within the archive. Just like my current patrons, Kelly Sisson, Neil Skarupa, Doozer Pendon, Ronan Komori, and Eric Phones. Thank you all so much for the support. All content used on Tapes of Trepidation is either original, used with permission, or is available under Creative Commons Share-alike license. All rights reserved, unless otherwise stated. This podcast and its content may not be redistributed or rebroadcasted without the express written consent of Tapes of Trepidation and the story's author. Thank you so much for listening.